You do it. Hello. Welcome. We're streaming here, so you know. Welcome to this meeting. I'm going to kick things off, and then basically there's a couple different people that I asked to talk for like no more than 5 minutes. So if they go over 5 minutes, I was going to get an air horn, but I didn't. But basically the idea is to hear about a lot of different things that are kind of all the balls that are in the air. Go over a little bit of summer, and then also talk about plans and proposals for fall. And then, so I don't think that should take more than 45 minutes to an hour. And then, even though this room sucks for discussion, we should open it up to discussion. So last year, I called a similar meeting on September 12th, which is tomorrow a year ago. And there were like 30 people that said they were going to go on Facebook. And it was called Save Cooper Union, which was based on a Facebook group called Save Cooper Union, and also just the idea that we should save Cooper Union, because nothing had happened yet. So I looked at the chalkboards from that meeting. We were like taking notes, and they were really dumb. They were like, how can we, like, they were like, what's going on? Like, that was literally the question. So we didn't know, or I didn't know who anybody on the board was. At all. I thought of the board as like some monolith. Today we have at least 2 trustees here. We have Mike Borkowski and Jeff Garral. They rearranged plans last minute. I didn't know where the faculty stood really. We just hadn't talked to them. We've been talking to them like normal, but it wasn't really clear. We had one community summit put on by Friends of Cooper. That was really cool. And some walkouts, but it was generally like, what do we do? So a year later, it's kind of crazy. It feels like we have a much broader group of people that are working on this. That's my sense. There's like randos from the internet here that are like supporters. People who are writers. There's a lot of older alumni. It's not just students. I'm not a student anymore. And we also have a whole also didn't graduate. And there's a whole new class of freshmen who seem really cool. So it might be kind of long-winded, but I want to go just read through the demands and the principles from December, because I felt like it's kind of a good way to start. But would anyone want to read this? I'm going to have to kind of see a lot, probably. And you read it? Oh, cool. Oh, that's how you go. I'm going to make you stand up here.
Okay. Demands and principles released as students for a free Cooper Union on the occasion of the lock-in, December 2012. Demands. The administration must publicly affirm the college's commitment to free education. They will stop pursuing new tuition-based educational programs and eliminate other ways in which students are charged for education. 2. The Board of Trustees must immediately implement structural changes with the goal of creating open flows of information and democratic decision-making structures. The administration's gross mismanagement of the school cannot be reversed within the same systems which allowed the crisis to occur. To this end, we have outlined actions that the board must take. Record board meetings and make minutes publicly available. Appoint a student and faculty member from each school as voting members of the board. Implement a process by which board members may be removed through a vote from the Cooper Union community comprised of students, faculty, alumni, and administrators. Demand number 3, President Barucha steps down. Principals as well? Okay, principals. The higher education bubble. The overinflated costs of higher education have placed more than $1 trillion of debt onto the backs of students. Higher education should be a means of social mobility and intellectual liberation, but it has devolved into an industry that exploits students for profit. Inevitably, this bubble will burst, and what appears to be a healthy and growing educational system will be revealed as a model that was always doomed to fail. Grow down. The administrators who have grown us into this mess are trying to grow us out of it. Investing in higher education bubble is short-sighted and uncreative. Playing a larger role in one's community provides strong roots. If we refuse to invest in a growth market and reaffirm our mission, we stand to see the principles of free education bring life back to our own community and other institutions as well. Structures for transparency and integrity. Bloated and visionless administrations have become an epidemic, threatening institutions of higher education all across America. We must rebuild the governance of these institutions with open flows of information and democratic decision-making structures. Carrying a mission such as free education will require principled rather than self-sustaining leadership. That's it.
So that was in December 2012, and just looking at the demands, we're further than ever from the college affirming its commitment to free education. I think last week they changed the website to say that exceptional students will also be given scholarships. In terms of a timeline for this year, it's getting really tight. It kind of feels like after the melodrama of the negotiation and the end of the occupation, that we're not in a time crunch, like everything's just kind of floating about. But realistically, just applications are due in December, and people who apply in December are expecting to pay $20,000. And people who are accepted in April and accept their acceptances are accepting $20,000 a semester. So really, what we're looking at until December and then through April is kind of a last stand, as far as I can tell. In terms of the other points, though, I think we made progress, which is, if you look at changes to the board, in December, a student will be on the board. It's not clear if they're going to be a voting member, and there's not a faculty member on the board yet. But basically, we had a write-in campaign for new trustees. We have Kevin Slavin, we have John Leeper, who's good, from the CUAA. We now are working with Mike and Jeff, and there's a student. So as far as making board minutes public, we got a student in there officially. And I don't know if President Barucha is going to step down, but we can keep trying. So the next thing that I thought, so before starting, there's one thing that I think is really important too, and I'm going to try not to talk so much, but it's hard, because there's a lot to cover. But basically, we don't have official channels of communication. Those are owned by the school, and what happens with those are petitions go around to every student, every alumni, every parent, saying the students are creating a poisonous and dangerous atmosphere. This was an email sent to every single person this summer. We're not allowed to use those channels, so we have to build our own. So the fact that you're here probably means you're on these things, but if you could humor me, we could build a really good new channel by texting 2 different numbers. So if you're not on the CELI, oh yeah, cool, so here you can write it. So if you're not on the CELI, it is an announcement loop for actions and events. And the way you get on that is you text join Free Cooper Union to 23559.
One word.
Yeah. Join Free Cooper Union. Yep. So if you actually want to do this now, it'll like make me really happy. And like in my head, if I were more like charismatic, I'd be like, everyone hold up your phone. and like a Blink-182 concert. Because actually this is gonna be like, if we can do this, we'll be determined on if we can actually reach people. That's only one number, there are two. The second one is to text FCU. Oh wait, okay, I just finished. So the second number is our contact database, and this is something that we're working on in the fall that I've been looking a lot into. It's a thing called Nation Builder, which is like a tool used by like Republicans, Democrats, like Green Party people, like all different. They're like, they don't care who uses it, and it's really creepy. It'll ask, if you text it, it'll ask you for your name, your email, and then it'll find your Twitter and your Facebook, and it'll find every email you sent us. And it sounds really awful, but we need it. Because also, we're gonna start making calls and asking for money is one of the proposals. There was a Money on the Table pledge project, and you'll hear more about a plan to make that real. So the second number is texting FCU. FCU. To, it's a weird number, 917.
Write a little bit bigger.
Oh, okay. I can read it again too. So you text FCU to 917-746-5634. And if you get on those now, you won't miss more stuff, and it'll be really exciting to realize that, for me, like a theme of all the stuff that is about to be presented is, I think of it as parallel administration, that like people are here because they don't like the way things are being done at Cooper, so we can actually clone them. So Vincent had a really good quote in an article that just came out where he said, we get more press requests than the school, so we're running a PR office. And we think we can raise more money, so we're running a development office. And I think and we're changing the governance too. So I guess there is not a projector. Vincent, are you? Oh yeah, can you still talk about the salon?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, and the other thing too is we have some of these red packets. We put together a disorientation for the freshmen. This is really cool. It's a 12-page reader with information about Free Cooper and everything we've been working on. It also has some other zines and stuff, and it's financed anonymously by scared faculty. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars printing. We printed 300 of these. So I guess Vincent can talk more.
Hi everyone, I'm Vincent Hoi from the Architecture School 4th year. I just want to have a show of hands, like who's from the engineer school here? Ooh, not bad, right? Yeah, I know majority of you are artists. I'm just curious. Any architecture student here?
We all have to go to work.
Good. And thank you for showing up. Because I miss you all. You know, during the occupation, I know you guys are busy and doing stuff. Freshmen, who's freshman here? When we graduate, the future of the Cooper Union goes to you. And I mean, all of us, but most likely you will work on it. We're gonna pass it. So I'm here to just talk really briefly about what happened during the occupation, specifically on the exhibition. So during the occupation, we have finals, we have a lot of exams, we have a lot of presentation. So we use the office to study. We turn the office into our study lounge, and we live there. And for the last 2 weeks of the semester, students are studying while they're occupying. I mean, even occupying, well, studying is part of the occupation. So you see everyone on the laptop typing. When they take breaks, they communicate with the larger audience. So that was really the first step to transform that space and that structure. After the semester, we have end of year show. So right after the semester, we have about 1 week, and we're thinking, it's a week before a larger audience come into the school, the public, to come see our work. What can Free Cooper Union show the audience? So we came up with an idea of doing a salon, where students, faculties, and alumni could show their work side by side, where there's no hierarchy in the work, and work just purely there for you to appreciate. It's modeled after the British and the French. So within a week before the opening, we made a call for submission, and 4 days before the opening, we got the first piece of work. And at that time, of course, we are all panicking, and we don't know if we got enough work to call it a salon or just a one-piece show. and the amazing things just happened. For the next 4 days, we have over 100 different pieces hundreds different pieces come in. And we still don't know what to do with all these pieces. We have entire 7th floor occupied. We have the hallway, we have the lobby, but we don't know how to organize the pieces. So at this moment, our school, a student of our school, really showing off what we're good at is to get things done. The works that come from students, not only from art student, but also from architecture student, and a lot of work from the engineer student. We received over 10 to 20 pieces of work from engineer student. Works vary not only from sculpture, painting, traditional art, but also a lot of video projection, a lot of protest work. So that was great. 24 hours before the opening, we installed the first piece of work on the wall. And remember, at that time, we have over 200 pieces received, and they're all in the cabinets. So the next 24 hours, we basically worked non-stop until the opening night. What I was going to show you guys on the projection, which we don't have a projector right now, but it's to show you the atmosphere of the day. Have a show of hands, who came to the exhibition. So you have a sense. You guys have a sense of what was going on. Many alumni have been disappeared for 10, 20 years. They came back. They came back for this very specific show. And they talk to us, they say, hey, we haven't seen end of year show for 20 years, but this is why we're here. There's 2 floors especially crowded. The 2nd floor, where they serve alcohol, and the 7th floor, where they come see our salon. No offense, other works are really good, but you just can't go seeing this amazing piece. So for the duration of the exhibition, we weren't endorsed by the official end of year show committee, but we got more press. We have a lot of articles written about us from here in the United States as well as from the UK. And also in UK, another group of alumni organized their show over there. And it was a one-day exhibition. They also showed some of our work in the form of digital projection. So our show instantly became international. And it's 5 minutes, so I just want to thank you everyone for the work. If you want to continue to kind of be part of this, then I guess we have a lot of work to do, not just in terms of how to save Cooper Union, how to free Cooper Union, but also continue to produce really, really good work. Thank you.
So the next piece was to talk about other stuff from the summer. The salon was really a highlight in terms of being creative and they're just awesome. But there's a lot of other things that I kind of listed, which was under occupation, which is why did it start? What was it for? That time they threatened to pull everyone's degrees, 100 people's. Issues with firearms, armed security, blocking fire stairs, boarding up water fountains to get students out. When GemShed finally visited, when trustees visited us.
Guns.
We had armed security. all the lectures and workshops that were held on our YouTube channel. We have like a bunch of recorded really good lectures from all these people that came in to talk to us. All the media coverage, and before the negotiation, a weird little attempt at mediation. But it's kind of a lot to talk about, and I feel like it might make sense to ask questions about it later if there are parts that you don't, if there are parts that you're confused about, because it's really hard to come up with a cohesive history, because I feel like it was different for every person, and there were hundreds of people that passed through, and a lot that happened. So I don't think anyone feels like they can give like a cohesive history, but we tried in the disorientation reader to do that. Where we did land was on a negotiated agreement with the board. Is everybody like, if you're not familiar with that, could you raise your hand? Okay, cool. Okay, so there's like pretty good familiarity, but some people who don't know. So on Cooper.edu, there's an article from July 15th called Occupation of President's Office Ends. And if you want to read the full agreement, you could go there. But basically the conditions that the occupation ended under were a joint press release between the occupying students, or between the former occupiers of the President's Office, the administration, and the Board of Trustees. This was a process that Mike and Jeff, trustees, initiated, and basically it results in 3 different things. One is that they're going to set up a working group where a group of students, alumni, faculty, staff, trustees, and administrators are going to get allegedly unfettered access to finances of the school between whenever they start and December, and they'll make a recommendation to the board on how we can maintain full scholarships and have a sustainable financial model. The second part is a community commons space, which was understood to be like, we're leaving the office, where can we continue to do things like the salon, like the fundraising, like the PR. It's kind of up in the air right now. And the third part was amnesty, which means like everything that happened is like there can be no retribution. Unfortunately, 2 administrators, Linda Louise, who is the Dean of Students, and T.C. Westcott, who is the Vice President of Finance, Administration, and Treasurer, were fired 2 weeks before school started. There were emails sent around that said that they had left due to ailing family members, and the other one was vague. But basically, that wasn't part of the agreement, and that happened. So again, it's a thing to ask questions about if you have them later, and as you kind of go on, and also to know that it's ongoing, and that kind of upholding that negotiation has to happen on both ends. So really the students have to rally to make sure that the trustees and the administration keep their end of the bargain. Is Anna here? Okay. So, do you want to talk about the student power conversion? Okay, cool.
So over the summer, I think it was like Louder. So I guess like it was August 1st to 5th. And it was a student power conversion that happened in Wisconsin, and like 5 of us went there. It was really fun, it was really great. It was pretty much like maybe like 300 students and student organizers from all over the country who kind of got together in this one place and just like had a bunch of workshops and like different kinds of interactions with each other, and like, groups were talking about all sorts of things, and it was really, really interesting. There are 501, and like I try to go to panels that were like kind of about things that I didn't really know about and want to learn more about. So I learned a lot about like food co-ops and like what's happening with the Dream Defenders and stuff like that. But I think Casey, you went to like some different things.
Yeah, I was at panels on like student unionism. So there's going to be a handout about that. That was like a really resonant idea. But I guess the other thing is just to say that things like that are an option and in the future, and there's something to know about. I was kind of thinking of like things I wish I knew, and I didn't know that like student power was a thing, but like, so 5 of us went and met like 300 or 400 other people, and they're all talking about free education in other schools, and there's a ton of schools in New Jersey that are super active.
The craziest thing is that they all kind of like knew about it before we went there, and we went there, and they were like, "Oh, you're the Cooper kids," and we were like, "We felt really weird." Like we had fangirls with strings. I like felt really bad about it. They're all really super nice, and there's a bunch of kids from Rowan in New Jersey that I'm still talking to, and I think a bunch of us might go. They want us to go there and like give a presentation about the occupation and everything that happened, and kind of get to know them more. They're also nice.
And so like the other part of that too are like the workshops don't just happen in Wisconsin. That's kind of like an intensive, and there are going to be other intensives like that. Like there's one coming up in the spring in Montreal. So probably a bunch of people are going to try to. It sounds like a bunch of people that I know in this room want to like head up there, because in Canada they do like mass strikes about tuition, and when they strike, they create shortages of like nurses because the universities can't turn them up, and they like start to destroy the economy because they're so unified. And the other thing is that just realizing that there are resources to like learn more about this, not just like, and that we're all kind of new to this. Like at least like I went to Cooper when there was no problem. Like I didn't know we had a board. Until October 2011, no one knew that, except for some board members maybe, who also maybe didn't know that there were like financial problems. So, but student power is like a larger thing that you hook into. So like in the first 2 days before classes had even begun, we did 2 workshops that were, one was on campaign building, and the other was on direct action. And they were really awesome. A bunch of freshmen who are really cool showed up, and we had a really good time. And hopefully that's something that we can repeat more as we go through. If you're interested in things like the lock-in or the occupation, or things like a lot of things can be considered direct action. There are resources out there on like knowing your rights, knowing how to do it. This Saturday, Student Block, which is a kind of coalition of schools, is going to do a event in Washington Square Park from I think 1 to 5, and they're going to do some workshops on things like we might be part of one with them called like it's called Radical Imagination. So like basically they want to all sit around in a circle and like just come up with ideas for like the craziest citywide student actions. Not like the biggest and not like the scariest, like the weirdest.
I think that something that comes up a lot when you think about these things is the fact that we're not alone at all. And like going to the Convergence like way back in the summer, made me realize how like messed up other schools have it, like compared to us. I felt so grateful for this, because like there's some crazy stuff going on. And they're all like so supportive of what we're doing here, and I can see it as like some sort of symbol of some sort of like light at the end of the tunnel. And they like it means so much for them that we're doing this. And also just like there's all these like organizations like Student Block, just like student run, people run things that are just so, I don't know, they've been like behind us. Like the occupation wouldn't have happened without them if they weren't there like supporting us and like being outside. And, I don't know. It's just like so important to like recognize those things and know that, I don't know, be grateful and like try and like build solidarity outside of school, because they're also going through a lot of like horrible things.
So it feels kind of out of order, but a lot of the members of the working group so far are here. And so I kind of wanted to just ask, if you're on the working group, can you stand up? Could you say your name, school, and year? Just so people can put a face to name.
Robert Tan, Architecture, 81.
Barry Durgan, Engineering, 83.
Rob Brummer, Chemical Engineering, 2014.
Marta President, Architecture,
Jacob Nunat, Art, 16.
Teresa Belberg, Dean of Engineering.
Mike Borkowski, class of 61, trustee.
Jeff Doral, trustee. Couldn't get into Cooper U.
Clarence Hopel, Art 13.
So, I won't repeat it because it seems like too much, because it seems like most people know, but those people are all going to volunteer a lot of time and effort to sit around a table, look at documents, and come up with a thing by December. And but they can't do it alone. So, is Sang Yu here somewhere? Hey. So Friends of Cooper Union is kind of like one of the first things that started. The first organizations, they're like their membership is shadowy, and sometimes they seem to not exist, and other times they're like spitting out crazy like letters and like 45-page documents, and putting on like events. But basically when the working group happened, they stepped up and immediately created a Tumblr. It's called workinggroup.friendsofcooperunion.org, and that's where they're gonna work with the working group to get everything that they possibly can posted online. And they're also gonna try to, I guess I'll just let Sang Yu take it. Yeah.
I think, I guess what I wanted to talk about was, I just wanted to apologize, Henry Chapman and Greg Vernon, I wish they could be here tonight, so I'll just say a few words on their behalf. But yeah, we are really super excited about the working group and want to offer as much support to the group in the area of community engagement. And as Casey mentioned, there is a Tumblr that will be a way for the community to engage with the representatives and also for the representatives to share information, so it is two-way dialogue. And in addition to that, in addition to sort of like a virtual space where this dialogue can happen, Friends of Cooper wants to help facilitate in-person discussions, at regular frequency throughout the semester, so we can have further dialogue. And I was talking with Henry today, and I guess since this is an academic institution, he was also sort of proposing maybe something like a midterm review, where halfway through, like, check in with each other and see how things are going, what needs there might be, and what can be done. And I think also, I'll be probably planning on reaching out to all the representatives in the next couple of weeks to figure out other ways to engage.
So that's going to be like a huge thing happening throughout the fall, that everyone should just keep in the back of their head, and try to realize that these people are going to be meeting, I hope, weekly, but also that they haven't started meeting yet, because we just found out that 2 seats got added to the working group, one for a part-time faculty member and one for a staff member. And that seems like good news to me, but also it's generally part of a next point that I'm kind of going to skip over, but it's a thing to ask questions about. But it's about keeping the negotiation on track. You really have to scramble to figure out what's happening, in my experience, and just to keep track of it all. So that would be the latest. As far as I understand, with the start date of the working group. I don't know if maybe Mike or Jeff have an update, but the faculty, it's delayed because of the faculty unions who need to certify that faculty participation is not managerial. Sure.
No, Richard Stock said that wasn't true. That was what.
Yeah, I just.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
He said that.
It was because they have to officially go through the union to have the union have the elected participation. It has nothing to do with managerial.
Well, actually, that's not accurate either.
You want to introduce yourself?
I mean, if you want to wait until our update, we'll try to.
No, I think it's a good time. I saw you guys walk in, so you guys should introduce yourselves.
Okay. At any rate, hi everybody. I got some stand up to you. My name's Lawrence Message. I work here. I'm a staff member. I've been here about 6 years. I've worked in the computer studio upstairs, as some of you probably know. What probably most of you don't know is that I've also been serving as an officer in the staff union. And well, if you don't know, all of our employee base here that is not considered managerial is unionized. 3 unions here: the full-time faculty, part-time faculty, and staff. So I have served as both vice president and president of the staff union. And what we do in the course of doing that is work to enforce the labor contract that we have with the Cooper Union that governs the conditions under which we work and do, and so on and so forth. So, Maren, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
I'm Maren Stagey. I'm the president of the baby union on the block, the part-time faculty union that finally got our first contract a year ago. And I'm really happy that staff employees and the part-time faculty employees have our seats now on the working group. I think it makes a difference. Never saw it as truly representative until now. I'll just dive into this whole issue of what is taking so long, which is just very hard to explain. I mean, the negotiations between representatives of the 3 unions and the Cooper Union that govern the terms and conditions of our work. I mean, that's a agreement for collective bargaining, and that means that a couple people negotiate, but they're negotiating for the whole collectivity of the union constituency. And
well, and what's salient here is that when you form a union like this, the point is that the executive committee of that union, which they elect, has the sole right to negotiate for those conditions with the committee.
Right, and there are various kinds of legalities that surround that whole negotiating process. And you have to negotiate, your contract lasts for a finite period of years, and then you have to start negotiating another one. And that's pretty separate from the working group stuff. I mean, it is separate from the working group stuff. And but on the other hand, the reason I brought up the term collective is that everything that's negotiated eventually between the Cooper Union negotiating team and the union negotiating team, there are certain things that that's one who reaches an agreement, and then they bring that to the membership, and the membership either says, great, wonderful, we love these 25% raises, and everybody's sit, or something else happens. Yeah, right, that's usually that. So I mean, that's obviously, and that's how our working terms and conditions change. They don't change. They cannot change because of anything that the working group might think is a good idea, by the way. Just saying.
Well, and so I think that segues into how unionized constituencies can or can't participate in these sorts of things.
Yeah, that's the other issue that we're trying to work through.
So, you know, for instance, and I'm sure those of you who have read some of the threads on the Safe Cooper Facebook page that Richard Stock has been participating in, might have a sense of this. But in order to have any of these constituencies, or members of these constituencies participate, there needs usually to be a document drawn up that draws pretty strict boundaries between the people participating in that group and the union itself, effectively to be able to say that these people are not acting as representatives of the group, that they're acting in an advisory capacity, that they do not have managerial duties, as all of these things, if they're not spelled out, stand the possibility of eroding or damaging the collective bargaining agreements that we have in place with the institution.
Or the unions themselves, as I'm sure you all remember, in the 1970s, the union did bring a case to try to certify the CUFCT, and they lost. But it was on the very grounds that members of that union were making managerial decisions about budget finance, and therefore acting as managers, not really employees, because they lost. But you know that's pretty scary. So what's happening now is that Richard Stock and the consultants from Huron Corporation have met and have a draft of all the statement they need, outside letter, that's setting out all these conditions on which members of people who are full-time faculty, who also have to be members of the faculty union, can safely, you know, participate. It has to be negotiated between the two sides. They both have to sign it. And C was supposed to sign it, so that took a little while to figure out.
Right.
But
well, and that's actually, I think, a really big point in the sense that when, you know, when we negotiate with the Cooper Union, it can be done through one of two people usually. Either the president, although that's very rare. Usually it is someone who is named as the president's designee. And for most of the time that our unions are interacting with that designee usually never has occupied the vice president of finance and administration position. So obviously, when TC got fired, that threw into question who we were even supposed to talk to. Who was designated, who was talking back to us, because most of our relationships are wrapped up in that designee and not directly with the president. So we have been working very quickly to sort that out, as well as in the background to make sure that once it is sorted out, that we have members who are duly elected by the groups that they're going to, you know, to try to speak for and think about. And we're hoping to have it done that way. In the meantime, if you guys have, you know, have questions further on down the line, then certainly Maren, myself, Richard Stock, who is the president of the CUFCT, are normally happy to do our best to try to clear up any questions or issues.
yeah, but actually I would go a little farther than that and say that the ball is now in the court of Virginia, administration and council and curriculum, but we are, well, it just became we, but it used to, we're waiting to hear back what they thought of this draft agreement. And as far as I know, they're still waiting. And we can do
I think we have to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
anyway, thank you. I was just, yeah. So, really smart people who have made sense of a really intricate and complicated and dangerous situation with the unions. And another kind of grievance, which is, like they said, TC being fired 2 weeks before school started, kind of made this process have to start over a little bit. So the working group hasn't started yet. The next piece to talk about is Chris Benedict, and maybe some other people who want to join her. Chris, Claudia, Sarah, Robert, Victoria, if you guys want to talk about it. Basically, last year, or I guess at that community summit, some alumni put together a website called Money on the Table, where you could pledge to keep Cooper Union free. So the idea is, I'll give this money if they take tuition off the table. At that time, the discussion was about making tuition not an option. And so as you can see, the picture's changed, and now tuition has been announced. It's the only thing on the table, except for the working group who's trying to say, not all the options were looked at. Pledges don't mean much, so a different group has been working throughout the summer and for the months before to make a real independent fund for donations that are for Cooper, but not controlled by the administration. So.
I'm Chris Benedict. I'm Architecture 86. I spent 2 years in the art school, and then I transferred over to the architecture school. So I was in Cooper Union for a lot of years. And I'm one of those alumni that Casey was talking about who came back after way more than 20 years. And so I just want to tell you all how moved my group of people, my friends and alumni from that time are by the actions that students took here at the school. We were so impressed and moved by what they did. And then also really initially very concerned about their safety. And we're trying to think of ways that we could support these students who are really being heroes here at the school. And we were able to make contact and had a number of discussions with the occupiers. And what came out of that conversation was that we should be figuring out a way to be making some money. And so we started talking about fundraising. And so now we've started something, we're about to start a not-for-profit corporation that can intake money so that people can contribute to this group and use it as a tax write-off. And we have just, I think, wooed in a fiscal sponsor. So we are really on our way to starting this thing. It is as yet unnamed, but it'll probably say something like Free Cooper Union in its name. And the idea of this fund is to attract a few $1 million into it. And what we'd like to do is to get the money that would be coming into the administration of the school and divert it into our fund. The idea of this is that we wish to buy a year of tuition back so that we can potentially forestall tuition in 2014. We have some plans associated with that, and should we go into detail about what those are? Okay, what we plan to do once we have our couple million is to ask, is to ask that the school remain tuition free, and if we can get agreement on that, we will give the school that money. If we can't get agreement on that, we have other options for how to use the money. So the money that we raise, for the most part, is going to go into this fund, and the other part of it is going to go into what you could call an administrative type of thing, but basically this would be volunteers and some coordinators who help us put alumni contact lists together, help us do the outreach, help us do any number of things that bring the money into the Free Cooper Union Fund for this bi-year campaign. So you'll be hearing about this more when we do our official outreach. And if you signed up for this, you're definitely going to hear about it, and you'll probably hear about it more. We do plan to do fundraising actions that we hope will join alumni and current students. I have to say that it's been a fabulous thing to be able to reunite with my alumni friends who I haven't seen for many, many years, and to join in with students of this generation. So the entire thing is such an enriching situation, and we hope to just really make that a very powerful piece of this whole Free Cooper Union fundraising piece. So, you're
and the other thing I would add to that too is that these are all, I would frame all these things as proposals, meaning nothing is, the goal is not to steamroll each other, because everyone here is probably here because they feel like they're getting steamrolled by tuition and by like administrative decisions. So I mean, if you have thoughts or criticisms, like now you know who Chris is, and you can, you know, chase her down, or you can contact through these mechanisms, and the point is to show the range of ways that you can get involved, and also that like these things aren't like, they're not like boulders like rolling down a hill. Like you can actually change them if you don't like them, and you could probably stop them if you hate them too. The last piece that I had before opening it to discussion was something submitted from Sweden, which is, Josiah is on exchange, but he wrote a proposal about student unionism, and Sarah and Jacob were either going to print it or read it or something.
Yeah, well, we figured it was actually, it's like pretty long. So we're just gonna do little excerpts of it.
Okay, cool.
So this is from Josiah's proposal for starting a student union at Cooper. He says, the Cooper Union needs a student union. Student unions are almost unheard of in the US. The students in universities all over the world are members of unions. Many of these are highly bureaucratic, have been co-opted by administrations, and are designed mostly to organizing social activities, much like student governments in American colleges. Other student unions are run by direct democracy and are able to fuel real political and institutional change by igniting student voices and legitimizing and empowering protest. Like the university strikes in Quebec in 2012, it lasted over 6 months, overturned laws, and stopped the proposed 75% tuition hike.
Why do we need a union? Despite our diverse socioeconomic and philosophical backgrounds, as students, we make up a community with common interests. There are issues that we all face in Cooper that we have no say in and that we can organize around. We dedicate nearly all of our time to Cooper, but have almost no voice in decisions in the school that affect us directly. Why does the Cooper Union exist if not for its students? Shouldn't we have some say in how the place is run? A student union can give us that voice. Don't we realize that this is like a whole meeting's worth of ideas, so I think that a meeting is pretty imminent.
Yeah, we'll organize a meeting to flesh this out more fully with everybody. Please, our communication channels. And it should be very good.
I don't think Josiah's watching the stream because it's the middle of the night in Sweden. But yeah, so that's it for presentations. And really we should just open it to discussion, even though we're sitting in rows. And questions. I'm really tiny.
We have a question.
Go ahead,
I have a question about the fund, about like you said, you can't use it to forestall the tuition hike. What are the other options that you were talking about?
Chris.
Well, there's a few on the table right now. One is to give the money back to the people who contributed. But the process that money goes through, there is a fee taken out of it from the fiscal sponsor, so they wouldn't get 100% back. But that's potentially an option. Another would be to start another school.
Scary.
That's what Saskia proposed like a million years ago. She was like, I'm going to start a school in Austria.
How much do we have and how much more do we need to raise?
As far as I know, this was a question that Kelly Smoller, who's on the Cooper Alumni Association, that's another good meeting. We'll try to like do a better job announcing meetings that are not just our own, but meetings all throughout Cooper. It's the Cooper Alumni Association is going to meet on the 12th, or no, not the
17th.
17th.
Next Tuesday.
And do you want to answer?
No, I just wanted to ask you something.
Well, I'll get there in a second, yeah.
That's done.
But basically, Kelly Smoller, who's on CUAA, they're a bureaucratic body, so they have a power to make a resolution and ask the board to do things. So they passed a resolution saying, actually give us the number of what we would need, what you're gonna, I can't remember her exact resolution, but it's like, what's the number that we would need to raise, or that you're, to put tuition off a year. And I believe the number is something like 2.15, or
18.
I believe 11.3 million.
Yeah.
or
It was
Additional to what was, no, or
so.
that would include what's already raised by the development every year, so that would be the total value.
So this is another thing that's kind of tricky too, which is that like when the mediators came to the occupation, they told us this thing that like that feelings are facts, but like here I feel like facts are feelings. Like you'll ask someone for a number and you'll get 6 different numbers. I would come to the CUAA meeting on the 17th and ask.
It'll be announced officially.
Yeah.
What time is it?
It's gonna be
6:30.
6:30.
It'll be live.
So Casey, in your opening discussion, you mentioned about you were becoming a public relations agency, the development department, and all that. I think that's an awesome thing that we should all focus on, executing best. And because what we're talking about, what Chris is talking about, is however type of alternative fundraising. Now, we've been on various levels of discussions about that, and there seems to be something waiting to happen, which we can call the Cooper Creatives. Because in a sense, by all the media savvy you guys have acquired, the skills that you got, and the amount of press, you said you got more press than the school itself. That's amazing to have that kind of skill. And to further that, now Sean Cusack put together a list of historical creations that came out of Cooper Union. When I speak to people, this is tested now, you know how you do focus groups? This message is tested and it works on non-Cooper Union people. And that is basically to focus on things that came out of Cooper Union. Like if many of you know that if you use a microphone, Emil Berliner, Cooper engineering graduate, invented the microphone. He also invented this record. So all those DJs out there. So if you're thinking about ideas how to communicate this to non-Cooper people and why they should invest in the school and fund the school, these are the types of things that we can actually execute on. And within this group of towns, we have people in design and art concept. We should actually come together and create these type of initiatives and use those skills that you guys develop to focus on that type of message. Because really what it comes down to is drawing money into this fund. And the purpose of this fund is what? To pay the scholarships. Really, if we want to look at the bottom line, is that accurate?
It's to raise the amount in tuition. And
exactly. So raise enough money. We have to raise $20 million. We come up with a campaign that will raise $20 million.
So the other thing I would kind of tag on to that too is when people have ideas, is to organize a meeting. Like I thought that was really sly at the end of Jacob and Sarah's thing. They just kind of on the fly, we're gonna call the meeting. Like, and there's not a date yet, but they're like, yeah, we're gonna have a meeting about this. And so Paul's things like, maybe it's not its own meeting, maybe that's a meeting where, you know, you talk to Chris and say, when's the next fundraising meeting?
Or who wants to do PR and pitch ideas and sketches and things in and just do it. We need to have a place where everybody can just jam on that and be on the page and kind of have a strategy, you know, we should make a roadmap, things like that, what we intend to do at what time and try to get moving on it. Because the clock is ticking.
So we have a half had started already with ideas for the fundraising, so when we open it up to
Everyone.
people. I don't know how to do something like that. He does.
Okay.
So I just caught trustee Jeff was on his way out. Well, since like both Jeff and Mike here, I want to ask from your opinion or some unofficial words from you guys. Like, what do you think? Where do you think we are now? Like, where are we heading? Give us a few words.
Well, I think that, it's hard to say. I think that everybody would like to have no tuition. The question is, how do you do it? And obviously, it's a combination of things. But I have no idea, whether the unionized people who work here have a desire to sacrifice in order to keep the school free. Because if they're not, I don't know how you do it. So I think it's a combination of a lot of different things that would have to go into it. But certainly willing to look at every possibility. I think that there's a division amongst the board members themselves on the subject. And I gave my word that I would try to find a way to keep the school tuition free. So I will do that. I didn't go here. I don't know much about the school other than the fact that you make a good argument to screw things up. But, what's the point of going that way? It is what it is. So the question is, how do you, what steps have to be taken? Obviously, there are expense reductions, there would have to be additional revenue, and there would have to be additional funding. It's not rocket science. Borrowing, someone giving the school $100 million. The real estate guys just gave $200 million to the University of Michigan. Or someone told me that was conscience money. So it's not the nicest guy in the world. Don't repeat that. I think it's not going to be easy, but I made a commitment to the kids that I would do my best. So I think we have a community, we have the necessary, participants. So until we have a first meeting, I really can't say anything. I hope that we can get that first meeting. I'll look into the problem and be ready about this letter. Because that's ridiculous. And I'll be honest with you, that there's another group, and I'm ambivalent a little myself, where we get a lot of criticism for giving scholarships to people who can afford to pay. So I know that, the argument about what's the word you use? That it's better to have, it doesn't matter, everyone here is here for the same reason, because they were able to get in. Meritocracy, is that it? But there are a lot of people who don't agree with it. There are a lot of people who look at it and say, why should we be using money to give a scholarship to people who can afford to pay? I would say this to you, that the reality is that the intent on the part of the board was not to charge anyone who can't afford to pay. So in theory, if we were going to have tuition at $20,000, for argument's sake, say, okay, there are 1,000 students here, well, 500 of them would pay 20,000 and 500 would pay nothing. And the 500 who pay 20,000 would be the 500 who could afford to pay 20,000. Now, I know that argument doesn't sit well with a lot of you, but I can tell you that I'm on board of the new school, and the woman who's the dean of the Lang College came from a school in Kentucky that's free. I forget the name of it. Yeah, Berea. And at Berea, it's all need-based. So nobody gets a free education at Berea unless they can't afford to pay for it. So they have a clear financial, and she thinks we're crazy. And they're far more successful than we've been in raising money. Because when they go out to raise money, they're able to say to a donor, this money is going to provide scholarships for kids who can't afford to go to college. So I couldn't tell you, you know what I mean?
But doesn't that come down to an $11 million question? That doesn't seem so unsurmountable compared to the complexity of everything else that seems to be in the air. So, in my opinion, if I'm looking at this as a problem that needs to be solved, it's a, say, $15 million question, to give it a little bit of inflation. We need to make a goal to raise that money somehow and use our creativity however we need to do it, rather than getting mired in
I mean, the real problem we have is the next 3 years. Because in 2018, the rent on the Chrysler building kicks up. But in the meantime, you know, doing that, we lose like 20-something billion dollars a
$40
year.
million gap over 3 years.
You know, so it's
All right,
really the
guys,
next
go
3
some
years.
people have some questions. All the way in the back in the red, and then over there on the left. So, yeah.
So thanks. So, full disclosure, I am from Occupy and not a Cooper Union student. So a couple of things. One, the fiscal sponsorship, did you apply to the Alliance for Global Justice?
No.
If not, I can help connect you to them tonight. Two, because they would be willing to help. Two, I'm really interested in how Cooper Union is the last school of democratic values in the entire fucking country. And that maybe we need, as a country, to support Cooper Union and look at it as the last stance for peace, since there are, at least 6 military academies that every single student gets to go for free because their congressman signs off on it. So how about we play it a little bit different and make Cooper Union the last stance for peace and democracy in the entire country, which truly that's what it is. I don't know if you know that, but that's one of the reasons why I applied. And next, I'd like to share with you all is that if you really want it, it will come and it will happen. I think money is no objective to hold any of us back. If it were, nobody would be here in this room. I'd like to give those thoughts to you, and I'd like to exchange my email. It's mutual aid, which is mutualaide@gmail.com. I gladly share and get you connected to people who can actually help you make shit happen if you have the willingness and the hard work behind it to do some serious PR. I also believe if you contact the state of New York and ask them if on the tax refunds you can have one check mark added, would you like to donate $1 to Cooper Union when people file their taxes? You might be taking a different stance and asking people to come to your aid front and center. I yield. My name is Lauren Napier. I graduated in 1998 from the art school, and I started working here in the photography department in the year 2000. I was a part-time worker.
Would you mind standing?
No, I'm just minded all carry on. I worked part-time in the photography department from the year 2000 until the year 2006 as a technician. By the time I was hired, part-time staff, the wages had dropped, there was no health insurance, there were no sick days, I was getting sort of sick from working with chemistry. And we realized,
I don't know, I helped organize the staff union, I helped bargain for the part-time workers and stuff. We decided to do it because the administration was kind of screwing us workers. It was a lot better in the 90s to work here. But we were all being exploited. That's why there is a faculty union here. That's why there's a part-time union here. That's why there's a staff union here. It's not because we want a lot of money. And it's not, and I don't work here anymore, so I'm not part of this union. I can say very much. But I think that all the workers here realized what was going on here a long time ago. And it's unfortunate that now the students are also being screwed. I don't think the unions are against the students. I think, and I wouldn't take the sort of the threat of building union stuff out. People who are in the union, they are not on the administration. You cannot be on the administration and be a member of any of these unions. So, and as you know, administrative costs in all colleges in the United States have skyrocketed. So please don't, I really hope that the unions, the existing faculty and staff and work, whatever, the three unions that are here, that are workers here, can work with the students, and I hope there isn't a fear of each other. And I really hope the administrative process and the administration, all three of your groups can really be set up, because I really hate to see this working group get torn out by, and yeah, unions in the United States, they're really bureaucratic. They've been around for a long time. They've been systematically, depowered over time. We don't have very strong unions in the United States anymore. But I just don't want to see any kind of antagonism. I think there's a way where it can work, and really ultimately they're after the same thing that you guys are after. Everybody just wants to be treated fairly. So I just wanted to put that in there, because it's something that's not really important.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm a teacher. I think you just heard a very important message, and I think we just heard some very exciting, creative ideas from Chris about the possibilities for actually raising money as opposed to simply thinking in terms of cost reduction. And I do want to underscore that if we start working in terms of a working group with an attitude, at least on the part of at least one trustee, that sees the unions as the obstacle, I think that we are going very much in the wrong direction in terms of democracy, in terms of student, staff, faculty, alum collaboration. I think that we all know that the problems lie elsewhere, and that it would be so much not in our interest to begin the conversation on, oh, let's see whether the unions are the ones that are going to make the sacrifices, when we're all working on this project together. And I really urge all of us, and in fact beseech all of us, to resist that attitude, and I think it's a real potential trap that the working group can walk into, and we don't want to do that. We want it to work hard.
The working group is looking fundamentally at cost reduction. There are a lot of other ways to solve the problem with revenue increases, but this is a very narrowly focused task. It's not the focus on the unions have to bail us out. It's not the focus. When I presented this to the Alumni Association, we talked about three broad areas where we have to investigate. One is the utilization of space. How do we get more efficient our use of space? How do we get out of some rented space, consolidate within the two buildings so they're not paying rent? A second was, what can we do with the academic structure to somehow simplify things and potentially save some money in that area? And the third is salaries and benefits. It's part of the whole picture that we have to look at. But the reality is that salaries and benefits are a big chunk of the cost, so it has to be looked at. But it's certainly not, nobody's going after the unions. That's not the intent. The intent is to come up with a ton of money, and that's the reason everything needs to be looked at. When we say $11 million, it's $11 million a year. It's not $11 million in one shot that we could do that. We probably could do that, but it's $11 million a year. It's just a ton of money. So nothing can be off the table. Everything has to be looked at. And the reality is this is the last shot because tuition's got to be implemented. I mean, the idea that we can buy a year is an interesting goal or a motive, but it's not going to happen because the tuition's been approved. The school is moving ahead. What we can try to do is negate that move, that decision, and turn it around and go back to being what we were. But if we don't do that, then it's going to go forward. That's the reality of it. That's why we're fighting so hard and why the work of the working group is so critical for the next few months.
Thank you. All right, with that. No,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
My name's Robert Dickey.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, my name's Robert Dickey, and I went to school here a while ago, and I have a snarky comment. If no administrator made more than a faculty member, we'd reduce a lot of expenses right off the top. But that's one thing. But also, when I was here, there were like 10 administrators, so I don't know how we got so many. It's the same little size school. But I have the thing with Cooper, which strikes me as interesting, which I really didn't think about until we hooked up in the spring when they started making noise about charging tuition for real, is that Cooper's kind of like a publicly funded private school. You know, it gets its money from tax exemptions and equivalency payments. That's a real sweetheart deal that nobody else gets. And there's kind of a moral imperative, like, well, you get these deals, these beautiful sweetheart deals grandfathered in from when Cooper negotiated them in Hewitt and stuff like that, and part of it has to do with the moral position of providing a model of what a free education can be. And my question to the board member and to anyone else here that might know, I hear conflicting stories that Cooper has a contract with the state of New York that's inviolable, and no matter what Cooper does, charging full tuition, they're going to get that $25 million a year on those exemptions and the equivalency payments no matter what we do. We can do anything, and we're going to get those payments. That's what I've heard from the dean. And I've read some articles and some newspaper stuff and some analysis and reports from 2007, and the parking lot was negotiated a 50-50 split, and it seems to me that that money is dependent on legislation. And if I were a politician, the first thing I'd be doing once they started charging tuition is say, why does Cooper Union deserve this money anymore? We have elementary schools. We've got CUNY that is no longer tuition free. Why is a tiny little private elite school entitled to this money now when they can't get their act together? They build this swanky new building, and they burn up a gift of the land on the engineering building. They're kind of squandering what we're giving them. So is it an inviolable contract, a trust in perpetuity, that we get that money, hell or high water? Or is it a line in the state legislation that gives us that money and every year could be taken away from us if we don't do the right thing? And I've heard two sides of this story, and I'm very confused because we could be spinning our wheels like a gerbil on a cage, and someone in Albany says, look, you know, de Blasio says this is not right, and boom. So I'm just curious what your take is, or
I'm
whatever else
getting
knows.
the same feedback you get, tax equipment has been tested in court, the school won, and the lawyers say everything is fine, they can't take that away. But I kind of agree a lot with what you say, that when you're dealing with politics, I don't think anything is guaranteed forever, because the political difference, somebody else comes in, takes a different view. So, but the important thing is that what I don't want to see tonight is debate about tuition versus no tuition. There's nobody in this room that I know who's in favor of it. So I don't think that's what we really ought to be talking about. But it's only a matter of how do we get back to what we were. That's the issue.
I agree, but I think that there's a difference. If we felt that by charging tuition, we jeopardize these exemptions and equivalency payments, if someone from Albany says, you either go free or you lose the exemptions, it's a very different context that we'd be operating in. We would make the school free. There'd be no discussion. Or we'd lose the school. So I think that we ought to be thinking about that, because the sense I have is that they want to take those exemptions away. Well, so, I mean, that's the feeling I get, and morally, how do you argue it?
The board's having a discussion. I think you're right, but the board, we've had the discussion, and the decision is to go forward because they don't believe that risk is significant. That could be wrong. That could well be wrong. I don't know, but at this point, that is the opinion. Just hope that it holds.
Student in purple in the back.
Alright, I'm a freshman, and I'm completely ignorant of what's going on. I'm not even going to try to pretend like I understand what's going on, because I don't. But I just have a question that probably won't be answered, knowing what's going on right now. But I hope it's a thought that we can all have. I mean, my concern is, even if the money is raised, or somehow a magical occurrence happens, I don't know. Socially, is this school prepared to even do that? Or is the school shifting in a direction that doesn't necessarily want that to happen? I mean, if we look at this building that we're sitting in right now, I mean, from a foundation level, understanding of how schools should be built, this is kind of ridiculous. I mean, like, if you're in like an education hall, like your focus should be centered. I mean, why, excuse my French, but why the fuck are there like steel crumpled paper on the ceiling? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's like, I mean, that's just like a question that I have that won't be answered. I'm very accepting of that. But it's just like, you know, even if money is raised, I mean, like, will it be put to use? Like, you know, they see that the state of this building. You know?
Yeah, I know it can't be answered. I think that's a good statement, but I would also point people, if you're just coming into this, to a series of articles by Felix Salmon online, and specifically one called "Why Cooper Union Can't Be Trusted," which is kind of interesting. It's kind of a good title, and that's where I see the projects that Chris and Robert and those guys have been working on with an independent fund to be really important, which is, it's not that the school is not important, it's that the way money is used right now can't be trusted yet.
So, I want to add to it real quick, like from an academic standpoint. When the school collaborated to work on this T-shirt, Why Cooper, and it comes from a website, we were asking this question rhetorically. We were asked, like, we hope to raise awareness, like why Cooper is important. Now, at this moment, this becomes like a real question to ask, like, why are we still here? Right? So I think one of the strategy in terms of academically, how can we frame this back to a more rhetorical question? So we have to answer it through our work as students. We have to work hard. That's our question. As faculties and professors, we have to continue to do that sort of work.
Just really quick, if anybody, mainly students, but anybody here wants this orientation packet, we have a bunch up front now, after, whenever you want, so you come ready. Any other question?
Hi, I'm Effie. I just had a quick thought about, I guess, the fundraising part that you had previously discussed. I think she left. But I was thinking it's probably like best to go into like a venture like that with the sense that you can accomplish it. First of all, I think like for a lot of us it's like hard to even like grasp that number of 11 million. But I was thinking like it should be something almost like a Kickstarter. You know, like how where there are like levels that you reach. You know, like instead of like saying we want to reach 11 million right off the bat, it's like that's like too big a number for anybody to really believe is going to happen. So it's like I feel it's probably better to have, and also more inclusive of the community, to have like these kind of levels that we have to reach, and then once we reach those levels, we can almost like celebrate those levels and strive for more, you know. And it's just a thought I had, like, just hearing that number is just, you know, I wouldn't donate because I would think.
I think that's why it's important to organize the creative teams who will come up with these various strategies. It's not a get it all at once kind of thing, it's an ongoing thing. You know, we do events, we do media, we do other kind of outreach and things like that, but it's up to you guys, if you want to work on this, to come together and organize and come up with a strategy. So I think that's the really, you know, you can set up a fund in a bank account, but if nobody knows about it, you know, it's like the tree in the forest, right? So we really have to take it on. So anyone who's willing to do that, you know, the clock's ticking, which is not.
Barry?
Yeah, there's I would hate for everyone to walk out of this room with an outrageous number in their heads, and that's the only number that comes out. There's been a history of this institution of people shutting down conversations by citing extraordinary numbers that people can't even possibly dream of. As everybody knows, 51 Astor Place is about to open and have tenants coming into it, and we're going to get, based on that, $3 or $4 million in pilot payments, assuming we don't lose the pilot, as Robert very swiftly observed. And the deficit right now is at 12 million, so they'll bring that 12 down to 8. And of course, the amount of money that they theoretically would get from 250 students comes nowhere near this 11 million number. So for a long time, and this is, you know, Toby Cumberbatch will say it over and over again, that every time you talk to the president, he would answer him by saying, well, can you give me $12 million, you know, a year? And that just kind of became the shtick. And the fact that he's brought it down to 11.3, and it sounds, there are a lot of people out here, you know, it's like saying tuition is $39,642 when it's an imaginary number that doesn't mean anything. So just please do not come out of this room thinking that that number means anything, and that's the only number you've heard all night, because it simply doesn't make any sense. It's not a number you need in order to get to 2018. It's not a number you need for sustainability. And if the administration decides to tell the Cuban Degree Alumni Association that that's the number, which, yeah, I mean, even Mr. Krosky said 8, 9, 10, you know, what is the real number? So please do not come from thinking $11 million side all the college. That's the number we have to raise above and beyond the $2 or $3 million that the college raises. Even though that is the number that I believe President Richard may have told the Alumni Association, saying, well, I don't know what the number is, but it's around, you know, but they put a number out there and publicize.
Well, apparently that number's from Huron Consulting, the people who are the new TC, so.
So put it this way, if we have a realistic target, we can reduce this from threat level red to whatever the level is.
It's not that it isn't a large number, but it's certainly not a number that large.
Okay, Ben?
So I'm speaking more as a student up here, but you know, for me personally, I'm in a position where I feel like I'm up in the air with what's going on, especially with the state of the working group, and knowing that the report won't go until December. But considering that applications start to come in next month, which is in a few weeks, and college days and portfolio reviews begin really soon, I was wondering if there's any student actions other than fundraising that are being talked about.
There's always stuff being talked about.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a CAC pad and stuff, but I mean in terms of like, something more concrete, or I mean.
What would you like to see?
I mean, honestly, I personally don't know. I mean,
what's your skill set? What can you do?
I think this might be for discussion at another meeting, which will hopefully happen soon.
I think that, yeah. There should be an action meeting at this point. So it might be good if you call the action. And also to
Yeah, when's the
to think
extra
about
meeting?
maybe not receiving it, and also maybe not inviting administrators and trustees. And also maybe tying it in with trainings on campaign building, direct action. And maybe starting by going to the student block activities on Saturday afternoon.
I'll help you.
Sam.
On my acceptance letter, and I'm sure most of the other people who were accepted in the class of 2017, it was stated that if we did not finish our education in a 4-year period, that our scholarships might not be there. Who should we talk to about this?
Yeah, on the acceptance letters, all students coming in said, like, if a student wants to, say, take off for a semester, it's not guaranteed they'll be able to come back to a full scholarship. I think the students who were accepted, who are going to school right now.
Yeah. That's a question that really doesn't have an answer.
Right now, I mean, the person you would probably talk to about that would be Liberal Needs, or TC off the top of my head.
And both them are fired.
Coincidentally, they're both gone, so right now, I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but I think in the next few weeks, we'd like to make that more of a known fact amongst the community, because I don't think a lot of people.
Dad.
I only found it out when you guys told us late last week.
Yeah, I'd like to have like a smaller, like more student-centric meeting at some point in the near future to address things like action and questions like that. So hopefully at some point in this coming week, make that happen.
Thank you, Sam. Brianna?
Between now and December, how much administrative information are we expected to receive? Because this discussion is somewhat limited to the people who are involved in the entire Free Cooper movement outside of the Board of Trustees for the majority of the part. We also see members here. But if there's no, and obvious, the tension's obvious between these sort of two groups. And with that, are we expecting a lack of transparency between the two of us? Or are we just waiting until December to see if they say yes?
The two of us, you mean the
Us versus the
administration and
administration.
everything else?
Yeah, basically.
That's something we've come to expect for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
But, Casey,
What kind of information you talking?
So I think that would be a good question also to keep asking to the working group members who stood up, and maybe it would be good to like post their pictures somewhere. Because throughout the fall, as soon as it starts, they're supposed to be guaranteed access to anything that they need to put together those plans for, and that's like basically unprecedented, that level of access to students and staff and faculty. So yeah, you should follow up with those people.
They're also signing confidentiality.
Oh yeah, that was my second. I kind of trailed off because I got distracted by the space paper, but yeah. So they're signing confidentiality agreements, but part of it is to kind of prod the people on the working group, and they're aware of this, but to share what they can tell you. So when they review a document that they can't share, say like, when you look at the president's contract, do you know how much it costs to educate a student, or is there a way to find out? And to ask what they can share and what they can't share. And when they can't share something, to then go to the board and say, why can't this be shared?
Yeah, that's the point of having this group that's inclusive. There are student representatives, faculty representatives, alumni. Those are the people that should be communicating back to their constituencies. That was the whole point of having everybody represented in the working group.
I think Casey would be more concerned about the other thing, and that if a working group member requests something, if it's not provided, that then we need action to say that we're supposed to get access to certain things for some reason, something was not provided. So there's the question you raised of what is confidential, what is not, and that is completely legit, and I think it's my feeling in everyone's meeting to establish that there are certain things that can be communicated that they're not necessarily confidential, but there's certain things that are, and that's all right. But there's the other side of that coin of there's certain things that we want to people want access to, and the administration is in some way not providing that access. You know, what mechanism do we have to get it? And the only mechanism we have is to tell everybody, hey, we were told to get access to this, and we're not getting access to that. So you have to look at both sides. And from that point of view, I just wanted to ask what the status of the community comments are.
Community comments, Casey? Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna post meeting notes soon from September 5th, but there was kind of, for people who are interested in keeping track of the negotiation, a couple alumni drafted a list of sort of grievances with the way that the negotiation is being upheld by the board and administration so far. And we met with Mike on September 5th, and it's all kind of still up in the air. They're aware of our grievances.
We're working to get a place.
Need action.
We're working to secure a place that's going to be open to the entire community. We don't want somewhere that's going to be closed off to anybody that we know is important to what's going on here. Mary Stein?
Hi, thanks. Just to go back for a second to the union, hope you don't leave this room thinking. I think it would be really great in talking about possible cuts and, you know, I mean, I know the mics is just to sort of remind ourselves always that it's administrative faculty staff cuts we're looking at, you know, I mean, or the school-wide cuts, so that we don't get in this loggerhead that just because the unions do have to go through a process before they accept anything, whereas non-unionized people, the bosses would just say, guess what, you're getting X much from starting next week, you know, but you just have to go through a process. It doesn't necessarily imply stubbornness, right? It just, what we're trying to say is that there's a process. It doesn't mean, you know, so to phrase it that the unions are always going to be opposing these things, whereas nobody else will, is I mean, if we could try to avoid that kind of talking and remind ourselves that there is an institution that takes a lot of money to do and might be able to do but not just focus on, not turn the process into governance.
I haven't heard anyone talk about that.
I just heard somebody.
Just a time check, we're like 6 minutes away from 10:59, so that'll have been 2 hours. So it seems like it would be good to me to have a meeting after maybe like another question or two, and then organize a bunch of meetings really soon. It sounds like one about action, one about fundraising, logistics, and also creative ideas. Probably some people want to keep track of the negotiation. And yeah, and obviously I'm hoping that we can meet as like, not just students, I'm not a student anymore, but as like realizing that this is a broader group, that, you know, these meetings could also include people from New Jersey, you know, or like, yeah, so hopefully we can pick up regular meetings. And also, the other thing that I would add is that a lot of things we're talking about, but it shouldn't be limited to that. Like, I feel like it's really important that like anyone could change the things that are going on and also start new projects that don't exist. And realize that like over 100 people who were like in this room, I think, and also just throughout the school and the country and the world will like help you do things. And it's actually really exciting and fun.
Yeah, hi, I'm Angus Johnston. I'm a community history professor and I run the website studentactivism.net, and huge fan of y'all, you're great. Another fanboy. But I wanted to say just a couple of things about what's going on here and sort of what's at stake. And say that really there's two parts of what's happening. One is you're trying to maintain the status quo of Cooper Union being tuition free, and that in itself is an incredible thing, and the eyes of the country and the eyes of the world are on you. Everybody is paying attention to that. It's a very, very big deal for the rest of us. But really what I've seen today, and it really struck me more than it has in the past, is that the other piece of what you're doing here is at least as important and maybe even more important. And that is you're brainstorming, you're envisioning, you're imagining who runs the university and who the university is run for. And I think that part of the incredible potential of the working group is that it's a step, and a small step, but a real step in the direction of saying that the university, that the college should not be run just by and for the trustees and the administrators. That it should be run by and for the people in the Cooper Union community. And one of the things that really struck me earlier this evening was hearing that there are members of the Board of Trustees who are, and hearing it from a member of the Board of Trustees, that there are members of the Cooper Union Board of Trustees who are hostile in principle to the idea of Cooper Union being tuition free. Not just hostile because we can't afford it right now, it's not something we can do, but that the idea of Cooper Union being tuition free is something that they find weird and absurd and kind of repulsive. There are no students who feel that way. There are no faculty who feel that way. And what you're trying to do right now is create what I think is really, in some ways an old, in some ways a new, but a really powerful vision and model of what American higher education can be like and what the community of people running institutions of American higher education can and should look like. So, don't think of yourselves as just struggling to maintain what you have, because what you're doing is really something much bigger and much more exciting than that. And I know the folks in Jersey who people have been talking about, and they are some of the greatest student activists I know, and they have your back. There are folks in California, there are folks in DC, there are folks in Massachusetts, there are folks all over the country, certainly in Quebec and in Mexico and in Puerto Rico and across Europe. There are folks across the country and around the world who have your back. You're doing great work in keeping it. So thank you.
There's no more quick questions. I think we're going to wrap it up. All right, thanks everybody for coming. Anybody wants to find out about future meetings, stick around, probably find something very quickly.
Sure.